This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Tuesday, July the 8th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly, David Williams. He's produced the program. You'll be speaking with David when you pick up the phone and give us a shout to get in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So today begins the 2025 WBSC Men's Softball World Cup Finals out in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, running from today through the 13th. That's the Men's Fast Pitch World Championships. All right, a couple of quick notes for you. So we've got 5 players from this province on the team: Shane Boland, Sean Cleary, Bradley Ezekiel, Jordan Pomeroy, and Colin Walsh. Here's a couple of stats inside the World Championships. All right, most medals won by a team: Canada, 14 medals in the World Cup. The most home runs in the World Cup, Brian Rothrock from the United States, and softball legend Marnie Kerrigan from Canada in 1988 hit 8 home runs. Most home runs by a team, Canada, 1988. Most runs scored by a team, Canada, 1988. But we didn't win that year. We have won 4 titles, 1972, 76, 92, and 2015. Good luck to the lads at the Worlds. And sometime a little later in the show, we're going to talk a little tungsten warfare, darts. Apparently this province, back-to-back winners at the Canada Cup. So we've got someone coming on to talk about how the event went and talk a little darts, because who doesn't like throwing a few darts? All right, a couple of Wimbledon notes. Here we are in second week of the fortnight at the All England Club. Unbelievably sad match yesterday. 19th seed Gregor Dimitrov taking on world number 1 Yannick Sinner. He's got Sinner 2 sets down, and he has to withdraw. Tore or strained a pectoral muscle, but it was brutal to watch. Anyway, a couple of random notes. This date, 1984, John McEnroe defends his crown, thrashing American Jimmy Connors 6-1, 6-1, 6-2. 2007, Roger Federer, the Swiss, wins the singles title for the 5th consecutive year, beating Rafael Nadal in 5 sets, 6-2 in the 5th. Of course, Federer finished his career with 8 Wimbledon titles. That's the most all time, followed by Novak Djokovic, who has 7, and he's still in it. He's off to the quarterfinals for the 16th time at Wimbledon. Amazing stuff. All right, scams. They're endless. It feels like it's probably a smart thing for us to do here on the show when we hear them to talk about them, only in the hope that that bit of awareness might save someone from being separated from their hard-earned money. So we all know about the grandparent scam. Now, there has been a major arrest made in Montreal of someone who apparently is the godfather of the grandparent scams. He's facing extradition to the United States, where he's bilked people of some tens of millions of dollars. So we see a story last week about senior government officials, or people pretending that they are senior government officials and trying to get into your personal account, your personal information, and the banks. This one particular story includes the Royal Bank of Canada, but of course all the banks can fall prey to this. So the scams are being very sophisticated, and it is worth talking about it, because the last thing people want is to see their bank accounts drained. So this one is particularly evil. Okay, here we go. You get a call. The number is spoofed. It looks like it's coming from RBC. They have your full name. They know where you bank. Like the specific branch, say for instance Elizabeth Avenue at the Royal Bank. Then they get you to go into your Royal Bank app to say, in an effort to protect you from someone who's trying to scam you, and it's active at that moment. You go into your app, and during the call, the next thing you know, you hang up. You think you've done the right thing. You get a call from the actual bank itself to say you just got scammed. And in this case, the lady lost some $14,000. Then comes the conversation about compensation for what role the bank should play in protecting you. Now, the bank in this case said, well, the lady was actually active in her app and allowed for the scam to take place, so consequently no compensation would be forthcoming. Not so sure that's the best the banks can do, given the fact that they're sitting on our money. There's lots of protections in place, but not for stuff like this. So in every instance, at every turn, if you get a call that you're not expecting, whether someone calls and says that your Amazon account is being used, which happens all the time, and then a bank or a senior government official, just do yourself a favor. Hang up. If it's the bank calling and you're worried, and obviously everybody would be worried about their money in the bank, just hang up and call your bank. You know, if it's a credit card company, hang up, call the credit card company. If it's Amazon, hang up and check your account. But those stories are absolutely endless. Let's get some of the numbers for some of the monies that have been taken so far this year. For the first 6 months of this year, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre heard from 677 victims of the fraud, this is just the bank one, and recorded $11.7 million of financial losses. That's close to double the amount in the same period last year. It's really just becoming really difficult to discern what's real and what's not, just like many things in this world. But if you get a call and you have any inkling that it might be a scam, just hang up. All right. Since there was a story in the media last week about just how it's the seller's market here in the real estate business, and people are getting multiple bids on almost every property. Properties are going well over ask all the time. And then it's the concept of trying to make your bid a little sweeter. So you will close the terms and you'll say you're going to forego a home inspection. Since that story broke, got an email yesterday evening from I don't know if it was a man or woman, but they bought a home and they did exactly that. No home inspection because they desperately wanted that house. And what now? They've identified huge problems, several of which would have been caught with a home inspection. So it's not for me to tell you what to do if you're out trying to buy a home, and it is extremely tricky and expensive to get into a new property these days. But it's just that, cautionary tale. On top of that, it's not a regulated industry, which I think is extremely problematic. How many of us, the most expensive acquisition in your lifetime will be your house, your home? So to have an unregulated industry, which is so critically important to identify some potentially massive issues or concerns with a prospective new home, someone could just say, I'm a home inspector. Now, there's plenty of good ones out there with years of experience and all sorts of referrals that they can put forward to you, but maybe it's time to regulate that. I think that'd be good for the industry as well. And yesterday, very troubling call from a fellow from Deer Lake. They were out on the water in the boat was overturned. The young fella managed, well, I don't know how old he is, but he managed to get his 91-year-old father back into the boat. He swam to shore and then attempted to call 911. This happens all the time on this program. You get a call like that, and then consequently we get bombarded with similar stories from different parts of the province where the unreliable cell phone coverage is plaguing people's public safety or their personal safety. What can be done about it? I don't know. I know the government is trying to cover up some hot spot or some dead spots. They did it last year with the pilot program on the Burgeo Highway. Apparently they're going to try to cover 10 additional dead spots or poorly serviced areas of the province this summer, the status of which we don't know, but I can't tell you. Maybe 25 emails, very similar stories. One was where someone fell off their ATV and hurt their leg, couldn't even walk out to get cell phone coverage. Eventually was found by someone else who was using an ATV in the area, but there you go. And speaking of injuries, let's dig into this. All right. So we'll start with the good news regarding Workplace NL. And people will have plenty of concerns with that organization, and we can talk about it. So apparently, the province regarding lost time injury rates reached a historic low last year, amongst the lowest in the country. In the 2024 performance report from Workplace NL, shows the rate for last year was 1.2 per 100 workers compared to 1.3 in 2023 and 1.4 in 2020. So I guess we're doing better. On that, and apparently the fund is fully funded, the injury fund is fully funded, so that's good news. But let's harken back to last summer. And this is once again from a provincial government audit. And it's about the timelines and deadlines for workplace accidents to be investigated. We have a problem. All right. The staffing issues, lack of training amongst the significant findings of the audit. According to the audit, at least 1/4 of the investigations surveyed weren't finished before the 2-year deadline elapsed. Then you go on to even when charges are laid. Nearly over a 4-year period ending in 2020, more than half of the time when charges were filed, it happened within days of the deadline expiring. So says the audit. So whether it be staffing issues, lack of training, you don't know how many of these companies may indeed have been able to avoid charges being laid because deadlines were passed. And then even in some circumstances where charges were laid, there was no evidence offered in court by the Crown. So this isn't good enough. Yes, we can talk about Workplace NL most recent numbers from 2024, historic low for lost time injuries. But if we don't have adequate resources in place to conduct these investigations in a timely fashion, and for companies that are not doing their level best to protect their workers, for them to face the consequences in court, obviously, some have probably escaped charges being laid where they may indeed have been guilty of not being compliant with some of the rules and regulations and the protection for their workers. So that story is back from June of last year. We'll see if there's been any change, of course, just like all these audits and all these reports from Auditor Generals or otherwise. Accepting recommendations, understanding the issue, yet we still don't know whether or not there's been any advancements made there, and we'll chase that one a little bit. Okay, let's keep going. Story brought forward, an individual story regarding a nurse practitioner here in this province. And it's Tony Wakeham, this is a news release as of yesterday. Of course, we know the numbers, $241 million for travel nurses over a 3-year period. Then this is a specific case. A casual nurse practitioner from the West Coast was offered to work. She said, I'm ready to go. I think it's a she, but then was rejected. That same nurse was then consequently contracted by a travel agency to cover the very shifts that she was previously turned down for. Add to it, when we started hiring travel agency nurses, which I'll admit one more time that we probably did need them at one point, but how do you put that genie back in the bottle? So if this person was willing to take shifts in the public sector, was rejected, and then hired when they joined a travel agency, you've got to ask, what is going on here? So, again, we can have comments like, the report is outrageous, it's scathing, we understand the issues, and yes, maybe some safeguards for, appropriate paying of invoices has been instituted. But even just the concept of the travel nurse. And this particular case, how can that possibly be? While we're hiring travel agency nurses, and at the same time, 72 nurses were being laid off, it's just extremely difficult to understand what exactly is going on here. And in terms of putting genies back in bottles, let's look to the province of New Brunswick. So they've taken on legislation called the Travel Nurses Act. It's being challenged in court as to whether or not it's constitutional, and Canadian Health Labs, which are one of the big players here, and some people believe were Agency A in the Auditor General's report, so they want the Court of King's Bench to strike it down. They say it's unconstitutional legislation. So it was brought forward last month in the province of New Brunswick. And basically they're saying it's unlawful interference by the legislature into a freely negotiated commercial relationship between two commercial entities. The contract is scheduled to expire next year, but I guess this is the legislative approach to try to ensure that we don't continue with the reliance on travel nurses, whether it be New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, or here. Now, we are also told that this province's reliance on travel agency nurses is down some 42%, which is the good news. But is there any way to further bolster it? What do we actually do here? Because the comparison of paying a travel nurse some $300 an hour versus far less for an individual public sector nurse, you've seen the numbers. Average annual cost of a travel agency nurse around $400,000. How can that possibly be? And yes, there may have been the need to keep emergency rooms in clinics and hospitals open and operational at one moment in time, but it's interesting what they're trying to do in New Brunswick. You want to take it on? Let's go. All right. So we know Bill C-5, that's made its way through Parliament and the Senate, and that's about nation-building projects and that kind of stuff. It's also removal of federal barriers regarding interprovincial trade. Then we were told at one point that, just harken back years ago, we were told it was too complicated, nothing could be done, even though it was costing Canadian consumers billions of dollars a year for some of these very arbitrary barriers that were in place. We know that this province is not going to entertain any nationwide free trade agreement, even though we were signatories to the one in 2017. Then we're told by the federal government that it will unlock some $200 billion to be added into GDP. Plenty of research has gone on since then and say it's probably not that. That feels like a bit of fairy dust numbers. It's maybe not as extreme as the $200 billion, but yet there's work to be done. We have entered into an MOU regarding interprovincial trade, a freer trade with the province of New Brunswick, but we hear more stories across the country. We know that Nova Scotia, Ontario have entered into one. Now Alberta and Ontario have also agreed to a feasibility study regarding pipelines, rail lines between the two provinces. Now, it's all in an effort to have a framework that might make it more attractive for the private sector, but yet there's no proposal out there for a pipeline. Now, rail lines and that expansion, and also talk about critical minerals. Where's our province on the critical minerals conversation? You know, when we know we are sitting on so much of the critical mineral and rare earth minerals in Labrador in particular, where are we in that conversation? It was all the rage for a moment in time, but seems to kind of dropped off the radar somewhat. I'm not in the industry, so I don't know. We've had conversations regarding mining activity in Bay Verte, for instance, and it looks quite optimistic in that area. But where are we in these conversations regarding supply chain and the critical minerals that we have? So we can dig into it if you're so inclined, but it does feel like that whole bit about reliance on the United States and being more self-sustainable, some of that's kind of gotten sidetracked. And on that front, there's rumbles about defense spending. We know that this country spends somewhere between 70 and 75 cents of every dollar with defense procurement in the United States of America. Now there's a worry that one contract worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 million to buy night vision binoculars is going to go to an American company, as opposed to a European company that does business with all our NATO allies, has the same technology, but here's the problem. You can talk about where you'd like to procure contracts, defense or otherwise, but it's all in how the RFP is written. They can be written very narrow, and in this case, apparently that's exactly what's happening here. The technical portion of the RFP really narrows it down, the competition, to none, one company. Only one company can satisfy this one particular issue, and what it includes is something that I don't know, understand the technology, but let's see here if I can find it one more time. Anyway, it's about some very specific technical issue. The request requires a specific signal-to-noise ratio for the image intensifier tubes in the binoculars. The European competitor says that requirement is unique to the Canadian military. Doesn't reflect industry norms, nor the requirements of NATO allies. So if we're going to be real about reducing reliance on the United States on a variety of fronts, defense spending, defense contracts, and up and down the line, trade, you know the rest of it, how can we be writing RFPs that just narrow it down to only one bidder available in the world, and in this case, a defense contractor from the United States? All right, last one before we get to you. So, the Department of Justice in the United States has now said that there's no more information to be had regarding Jeffrey Epstein. You all know who he is. Jeffrey Epstein died in a Manhattan jail in 2019. The Defense Department, the DOJ in the United States says he killed himself. Nothing more to see here. Then we were told by Attorney General Pam Bondi that the Epstein list, the notorious Epstein list, was on her desk. More information was forthcoming. Now apparently there is no list. A couple of quick things. What's really hard to believe at this stage in history, that it's simply about the politics of it, but what we're talking about is the allegations of sex trafficking children. Shouldn't that be the focus here? Is whether or not there was a pedophile ring? Like, why do we have so many people out there, who are just opining that one of the politicians or political parties they hate is on the list? Can we not come to an agreement that regardless if it's a business mogul or someone who's in the monarchy or someone on the right of the political spectrum or someone on the left of the political spectrum or someone who's agnostic, who cares? If they were raping children, that's the conversation. That's the story. Can we just get past caring which party is represented on the list? Who cares? If you're on the list, if you raped a child, you go to prison. Regardless of who you are, your socioeconomic background, your political allegiance, none of that should be part of this conversation. But unfortunately, it is. And now apparently, there's no more to see. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's begin this morning on line number one, the top of the board. Say good morning to the Executive Director at the Newfoundland Aquaculture Industry Association. That's Keith Sullivan. Good morning, Keith. You're on the air.
Yes, good morning to you, Paddy.
Welcome to the program.
Yep. So I'll start off kind of picking up from a conversation we would have had in the past. So there continues to be misinformation distributed by particularly internationally NGOs about workers and seafood farmers in the province. It seems to be relentless and not factual information. So what there are concerns raised about salmon farming, equipment, management, and really a lot of it is older equipment from previous farmers in an area. So the push has really been to undermine the people working in the communities, seafood farmers, and attack the regulators now as well. And last time we talked, to push back, we wanted to put information out there about, saving South Coast jobs. So we have SaveSouthCoastJobs.com to kind of give the story of what's really happening and the importance of the aquaculture, particularly salmon farming, to the south coast of the province.
There feels like there's, is this based on recent comments in the film or the video coming from ASF? Because there seems like a real concerted effort here, not only in the form of pushback, but highlighting some of the ins and the outs of aquaculture. For a while when it was relatively new, people talked about it all the time, the pros and the cons. If I'm in Harbour Brighton, then it's a lot of pro. If I'm elsewhere and talking about some of the issues that have plagued the industry over the years, then it went away. Then aquaculture was dead silent. So is this all a pushback PR campaign driven by ASF?
Well, a lot of it, that's where it's coming from. And, really, they're knowingly pushing out incorrect, knowingly wrong information about the sector here. So first of all, the farming sector is managed. There are extremely robust requirements, from the Aquaculture Act regulations, layers of policies and licensing conditions. So you got to have a waste management plan in place. And one of the things that should really point out that wasn't the same as in the past is companies are required to have financial sureties and bonds in place that suit the government. Because in the past, sometimes there were companies that would have went bankrupt and obviously not in a position to be able to take care of their equipment properly. But changes were made to the regulations to address this. So these are in the millions of dollars, multiple millions of dollars in the case of something happens to a company. So gear won't be left out there, and everything is returned to its natural state. So that's been an advancement in the modern industry. Plus, companies themselves are, they've made national commitments to the buyers, and the other thing is, I always say, go to the South Coast, see these places for yourself, if possible. I know that's not possible for everybody.
Okay. Then let's dig into it a little further here. So unused company equipment, whether it be plastic sea cages or whatever the case may be. And here's what it says in the release. Plastic sea cages may be held at leased sites until vessel and staff resources are available to safely transport them to shore-based yards and recycling facilities. There's a lot of grey there. Are there any timelines associated with this? And who gets to tell us when the vessels are available and staff resources are available?
Well, first of all, like I said, there is very robust measures in place. So equipment can't, be able to leave sites, and if somehow there's something gets away from a site, that has to be collected. And companies, working very hard to make sure they do this. So the equipment can be stored on an actual lease site, so that's absolutely fine within licensing conditions. And there has been a delay on getting some of the equipment recycling. It was a logistical issue, and we talked about it before. But this is where the ingenuity of a local company came place. So they're a leader in sustainable waste management, acquired the plastic recycling equipment, began working with the farming companies, and you're seeing that equipment over the last couple of years, really. And the detractors or the ASF companies know this was happening, and this, they've seen the progress for a couple of years. In addition to their own equipment, companies are cleaning up what was left from years ago, the legacy equipment. It's a difficult and expensive job, and it's not perfect. We wish it wasn't the way it was, but these people know that the companies are doing their job to recycle and clean up that equipment. So as far as like you say, the timelines, it's got to be stored safely It's got to be on a licensed site, and we're getting through that as quickly as reasonably possible. I was able to visit the recycling plant. I guess it's 2 months ago or so now, but operations were going well in Harbour Breton.
Last one. You've heard this allegation many times, just like I have. And it's, you talk about robust policies and rules and regulations, oversight and monitoring, but then it's the concept of the fox in the hen house. So with government who is really bullish on the industry and also the entity responsible for implementing policy and oversight, it's hard for people to discern whether or not they're an enabler and or they're providing the oversight required.
I mean, they got to abide by their policies and regulations, and obviously they're separate entities. Anyone who's doing the inspection, and in a lot of ways, I mean, that's true for most of the things we do. Government are the ones who are promoting some work, and at the same time have to regulate it. So, I mean, again, I think they're strict. The policies to put in place, like the sureties and those things, work very well. And it's not only like a provincial government oversight. We have, the federal government, Transport Canada. They kind of mirror the same considerations to make sure sites are marked as they should be, and they're safe. And I think it works very well. But companies are certainly always willing, from my experience in 6 months here, to say, well, let's see what we can do to continually improve things. I mean, there were the people who are working and living in these communities and making the economy go in the South Coast and other areas. So I think they're fully up for that.
And we were talking about people will have very polar opinions about aquaculture, but if you're one of the 2,000 people working in the area, if you're living in one of the communities that this was the industry that came to town to revitalize, to give the town a future and contributions somewhere around $280 million to the economy, when compared to the wild fishery, which is in and around $1 billion, not insignificant monies. Anything else this morning, Keith?
No, I would just quickly add that, I mean, people can, the industry are doing things right. It's a healthy, safe food. And, those who are worried about the environment, climate change, low greenhouse gas emissions, lower than any other farmed animal. And, finally, ENGOs who are putting things out, misrepresenting the work of the farmers in the province, like, I think that may work in New York City at, the $1,000 a plate dinners, but I think the people of Newfoundland and Labrador can figure that out for themselves and are wise to that. So I encourage people to go to SaveSouthCoastJobs.com or NIA.ca to get a little more information if they want more details on the industry. Appreciate the time, Keith. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Bye-bye. It's Keith Sullivan, Executive Director at the Newfoundland Aquaculture Industry Association. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, like what I said off the top of the show, a little tungsten warfare, darts, Team NL at the Canada Cup. Afton Lambert is with the Newfoundland Dart Association. He's the secretary of, and he'll join us right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Second more to the secretary of the Newfoundland Dart Association. That's Afton Lambert. Good morning, Afton. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Long-time listener and first time actually talking to you, so it's great to be here.
Welcome to the show. Right off the bat, apologise for the he business. The only other Afton I know is a Scottish bloke.
Yep, well, it's a not very common name, and I've never met another one of me, so it's a common misconception.
Well, welcome to the program. Congratulations on the successes for Team NL at the most recent 2025 Youth and Adult National Championships. Let's start with the youth team. What happened?
So they competed back from May 14th to 18th. We sent 12 players and 3 coaches up to St. Hyacinthe, Quebec, and those kids did awesome. So collectively, they got a top 8 for the Norder Cup, and for the Canada Cup, which takes into account all of their singles and doubles matches, they got a tie for 3rd place for the Canada Cup, which is an amazing accomplishment.
And let's move off to the adult team before we get into some of the ins and outs of darts.
So the adult team, they competed from June 23rd to 26th, again in St. Hyacinthe. And our adult team, we were repeat champions this year for the Canada Cup, which is very, very rare. We did win last year, but prior to that, the last time we had won was 24 years prior to that. So it was a huge, huge accomplishment to be repeat winners. One of our players from Central, Joanne Big Red Walsh, she's actually our ladies national singles champion. This is the second time she's been national champion. And her and Elaine Pierce, they actually won gold in the ladies doubles as well.
So that's a pretty remarkable accomplishment. So if you're the national champion, I mean, is Big Red competing in other events on the international stage, for instance?
She does compete online, and she has received an invitation to the World Masters in Hungary this year as well.
Fantastic stuff. So when, like, people who watch darts on TV, look, people might say, well, darts, that's just a pub game. People play it in the basement over a couple of beers, but it's highly competitive.
It is very highly competitive. What a lot of people don't realize is that it's the same as any sport. Like, you can throw a ball around in the backyard playing baseball, but it's not the same as being a national level player. It's actually really, really hard on the body. Like, you're on your feet for hours, your back aches, your feet ache. Like, at the end of the day, you are done. So, I mean, a lot of people that are playing it, in a casual basis, they have no idea the toll it takes on your body and the mental stamina it takes to actually win at this.
So when we talk like averages, some people in the dart league, they use average per single dart. Some use the 3-dart average. What kind of averages are we looking at for the top skilled players from this province?
So for our men, they're very highly competitive. So we look at 3-dart average right to the finish. So for a full game of 501, and they're hitting like 80-odd averages. And the women, we have a couple of really, really skilled players. I mean, we got Big Red, we have Kira Taylor, we have a number of ladies that are amazing, amazing shooters. They're usually hitting about a 60 to 70 average. And again, that's to the finish. But overall, it's probably about a 60 to be really highly competitive on the national stage.
I have no idea how many competitive dart players or dart throwers are in this province. Dart leagues are absolutely everywhere. And of course, not everyone who plays is in a dart league. Do you have any understanding of just how many dart leagues might be peppered around the province?
Honestly, I'm not sure as to the number of dart leagues. For our players who are registered in the National Dart Federation of Canada, we have over 200 players.
Awesome. And we've got a couple of Hall of Famers, too. I mean, I know that Amy Earle was one of the best in the country. Albert Anstey, of course, who competed on the international stage. So there's people's footsteps to follow in around here.
Patricia Farrell is another huge one from the West Coast. Can't forget her.
No, fair enough. I don't want to forget Patricia or anybody else who's out there doing great stuff. Anything else you want to talk about this morning, Afton?
I would like to actually thank our sponsors. For darts, we are really trying hard to push it nationally and internationally as a sport for recognition. Unlike a lot of competitive sports, darts is considered just a pub game by a lot of people. It's unfortunate because, I mean, like I said, it takes a huge toll on the body, and like I said, that mental stamina that it takes, and people are really, really pushing it on the national and international stage to get that recognition so that we can actually get some funding for our players to send them nationally and internationally for competitions.
Oh, another name just came to mind. John Norman Jr.
Yeah. Can't forget him as well.
Yeah, he competed in PDC.
We have a lot of players that... And I mean, we have a lot of players that come into Newfoundland just to play here locally. We got Matt Campbell coming in. We have Jess Smith coming in. We have Jake Taylor. Lots and lots of Newfoundland players are amazingly skilled at darts. I think it's that English heritage.
There's stories that I'm aware of where people like John Lowe, Eric Bristow, some of those English caliber players, professional players, competed here at Stanley's Pub, I believe, right on Torbay Road. All these back in the 80s sometime, I think. Anyway, there you go.
Yep. We've had international events hosted here in Newfoundland in the past, and our association is actually looking to try and push some more world stage play here again in the coming years.
Do you have any favorite players internationally?
A lot of them. Bo Greaves, for the female side of things, I mean, she is absolutely amazing. Luke Littler, I mean, he is a stand-up young fellow that is an idol to so many young people coming into the sport. the sport of darts has grown so much in the last couple of years since he stepped onto the international stage, and people just idolize them.
I'm a Bully Boy Smith guy.
I like him as a player.
I don't know anything about him.
He's not my favorite, but, you know, he is an amazing player.
I mean, if anyone's ever watched darts on television, say from the Ali Pali, those professional events, it's absolutely bonkers. It's over the top, and the production quality is fantastic. I've actually been to professional darts at the Vicar in Dublin, and it was madness, absolute madness. Really enjoyed it. Good to have you on the show, Afton. Congratulations to all the participants who did so well at the most recent youth and adult national championships.
Thanks for having us for our little bit of bragging rights.
Happy to have you on. Stay in touch.
All right. Yeah. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. And I mean, I generally ask when we talk about darts if anyone in the competition threw a 9-darter. You know, if you can close a game with 5-0-1s and 9 darts, it's extraordinary. Do yourself a favor. You want to hear great commentary and a really short video. It's like 1:40 or something like that. That's how quick some of these guys can finish off a game of 5-0-1s. Just Google up Dean Winstanley 9-darter. Completely worth your while. Let's see here. Will you take a break here on time, Dave? Okay, let's do that. When we come back, Ida Linehan Young talk about a new novel and publishing independently. Then we'll talk about the new courthouse that's being constructed out in Stephenville Crossing, and then whatever you want to talk about. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Good morning, Dave. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy.
Hey, Dave.
Not bad, but the Blue Jays are doing wonderful now.
They're flying. Yeah, 9 in a row.
Yes, sir, buddy, wonderful. Anyhow, Paddy, we got good news for Stephenville Crossing and the whole Bay St. George area. Back in 2022, the Liberal government announced that the former Stephenville Crossing College of the Northern Atlantic campus will be converted into a courthouse and government service centre for the whole Bay St. George area. Anyhow, Paddy, the new courthouse was awarded, the tender was awarded to JMJ Holdings from St. John's, and it took a while, but it is official, and Paddy, the work started last week.
People have been pushing for that for a long time.
A long while, Paddy, and I started when Premier Ball was Premier, and I went to trade school there, and when it closed down the town, I wrote a letter to Premier Ball, and he got his minister at the time, Transportation, Steve Crocker, to write me back, and Mr. Crocker said, thank you for sharing your concerns. Input from citizens such as yourself is valuable as we plan for the future operations. And I haven't stopped, Paddy, and first of all, Paddy, I would like to thank our MHA, Mr. Scott Reed, and Scott is a minister now, and his constituent Vanessa Muse, who worked so hard for this courthouse to come to Stephenville Crossing. And also like to thank Premier Fury and former Premier Dwight Ball also.
Fair enough. It's about time this got done.
Yes, Paddy. And Paddy, now I'm going to take my gloves off. The naysayers in Stephenville. I'd like to speak about all the naysayers in Stephenville, especially the member for Stephenville, and now the opposition leader of the PC party, Mr. Tony Wakeham. Back in 2022, Mr. Wakeham stood up in the House and said, if I could be so bold, I would suggest that's like moving the courthouse from Cornerbrook to Gilliams over in the Bay of Islands, or from downtown St. John's to the Foodland in Torbay. Mr. Wakeham also said that Stephenville is clearly the hub of the region, and Stephenville Crossing has nothing. What a kick in the face to the citizens of Stephenville Crossing. Paddy, also we had the mayor of Stephenville against us, and also a big businessman in Stephenville who stayed at the Chamber of Commerce meeting back then, also said Stephenville Crossing will be underwater in 10 years' time. I do not have to mention his name. Everybody knows who he is, Paddy.
So Tony Wakeham said Stephenville Crossing has nothing? Doesn't really sound like him.
Well, that came from answer. Paddy, like Tony Wakeham, when I came here to Stephenville Crossing, my father was station agent. Stephenville Crossing was the hub. Stephenville would have nothing for the Americans. And that's what he said, really, that they had everything in Stephenville, and Stephenville Crossing had nothing, right? And the new courthouse is for all the Bay St. George, Paddy. So, I really got upset with Mr. Wakeham, and I know that he got a job as opposition, but he was even against the windmills, Paddy, and he even presented a petition to the House for Mr. Darrell Shelley against the windmills when Mr. Shelley ran for the nomination for the district of St. George's Humber back a while ago, but he lost to Mr. Hal Cormier. So, everything that the Liberals announced, Mr. Wakeham is so negative about it. Paddy, look at the MOU, Churchill Falls. They got the House open, and what did they do? Walk at the House instead of voting yes or no. If you're on a town council, you got to vote yes or no on a motion. So, nothing pleases them. And then, like I heard you a couple weeks ago about the sugar tax. Yes, I didn't think it was very good on the first of it, but that's all he talked about, the sugar tax. But what happened? It turned out, like the Heart and Stroke Foundation said, the sugar tax was doing its job, Betty.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the data says. I mean, it never felt like it was working as intended because government projected revenue of $9 million and the first year brought in $11 million, which kind of said to me that people weren't changing their buying patterns, but I guess they were, because the consumption of these sugary sweetened beverages was down in the province when compared to the rest of Atlantic Canada. So that's interesting that, it was all political.
Yeah, I know.
So,
and Paddy, we were promised a new courthouse when Danny Williams was in. We fought to get a new courthouse, and guess what? Mr. Williams turned around and built it in Corner Brook and put his name on it. So, now the Liberal government, everything they announce is Tony Wakeham is against it. I listen to Open Line all the time, and Tim Powers. They're so negative. I know you got to keep the government on their feet, but my God, let Stephen Crossing have something too. We had everything one time. Look, and Paddy, even when our new hospital opened back in 2003, was put there by the Liberal government. The PCs, Danny Williams going to take service out of our hospital and bring it in Corner Brook, and we had to have 3 big rallies and we won over. They were even going to take service out of our old age home here in the Crossing, and guess what, Paddy? They were going to do the meals in Corner Brook and send them out to the hospital in Stevenage and the Bay St. George long-term centre besides. So, we never got nothing under Danny Williams' government. And now the Liberal government built a new hospital in Stevenage, built a new hospital in Corner Brook, and all other kind of project. And here is Mr. Wakeham and the PCs against everything they does.
Now, they will tell you that the Corner Brook Hospital was first announced by a Conservative government, but of course nothing happened.
Yeah,
that's as long ago as like 2013 or 2014.
And was all kinds of money spent, but it was never done.
Right. Dave,
and like I said, about the trade school, I took my trade there, and when I said that building got the stairs, it was a sin to tear that down, so I got on the ball, and I got together with our member, Mr. Scott Reed, and he's his consistency assistant, Vanessa Muse, and she never stopped. And we finally got it, and the people out here are really... They can't believe it.
I appreciate the time. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Oh, thank you very much, Paddy.
My pleasure, sir. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let's keep going. Let's go to line number 2. Let's take it more to Ida Linehan-Young. Good morning, Ida. You're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How about you?
Oh, best kind. My name is Ida Linehan-Young, and I just launched a new company called Seaweed Publishing, and I wanted to introduce my first book.
Tell us about it.
So the first book is called Blinders by myself. It's a crime thriller that's set in St. John's, and we're having a book launch for it in St. Bride's on August the 3rd, and also a launch of my imprint, Seaweed Publishing, on the same day. So we'll have some giveaways and a reading and book sales and things like that in St. Bride's on August 3rd.
The world of book publishing has changed dramatically over the years. Of course, with the advent of the online book, I can't remember the name of the book reader that I have at home, but it's changed so much that when you look at something like open up a publishing house, it's a risky business. Might it be, Ida?
Oh, absolutely, but it's only for my books right now.
Okay.
I do have one other author coming on in October, Kim Perraway. I'll be releasing a book of trains, his last train book for him in October. But other than that, it's generally just to give me some flexibility in publishing, and I want to get some short story collections and get some readers or some writers that wouldn't normally see themselves in lights or, on paper, encourage them to join me in some short story collections.
Self-publishing, I have a friend of mine in Albert who just self-published his first novel, and he talked about, for starters, higher royalties, greater control and access to niche markets and those types of things that he speaks to. But also, he found that it was really tricky to get someone to help be an editor for his book because he was self-publishing, as opposed to using in-house editors and or subcontractors at so-called traditional publishing houses. How do you approach the world of editing?
I actually was fortunate to get an editor. She's from Ontario. She, edits internationally, and I hired her. She came on board, and she has, I'll have her saved for future works as well. Because that is a big, important part. A lot of people, they get their friends to edit or, get their friends to read through and stuff like that. So professional editing is a very big part of what I want to achieve with Seaweed Publishing.
Yeah, that second set of eyeballs who are experienced as editors are critically important. Ida, I appreciate the time this morning. Good luck with it. Oh, last question. So when you go to a traditional publisher, they also have a bit of marketing horsepower. So how are you going to accomplish that beyond a telephone call in this program?
I have traditionally marketed myself. I'm a big online. I have a lot of followers and things like that. And so far, I've had 50 requests for books across the country from people that I don't even know. Not cousins here or there, but people that I don't know. So, my name is out there, and I just want to continue to do what I do.
And I wish you good luck with it. Thank you, Ida. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. Dave picked up that line. I've been reminded, and I'm thankfully so, 133 years ago today, the 8th of July of 1892, the Great Fire of St. John's, of course. I believe it started in a stable somewhere around where we call Freshwater Road today. Before long, bulk of the city burnt down. Homelessness numbers were somewhere around 12,000 people as a result of that fire. July the 8th, 1892 is when it started in a stable, Freshwater Road. All right, let's take a break for the news. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Verna, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
I'm calling about the Bell Island Ferry Service.
You're not.
Honest. We have no boat.
I heard.
Yesterday we had one boat because the bow mount was down because of alarms going off in regards to the engine overheating. They found out that it was barnacles and mussels in the sea bag that was never cleaned out. That was not cleaned out. It was supposed to be cleaned out a month ago, but they didn't get around and they didn't do it. They were charged for it, but it had to be done again yesterday. Now today, it's down. The bow mount is still down because it has to be repaired, done to the water intake valve. They're hoping it'll be back today. Now, the Flanders is down because it has steering issues. The technicians are aboard, but even if the Flanders comes back with that issue resolved, we have no boat after 5 o'clock this evening because of the hours of rest, correct?
So when it comes to mechanical issues and something not being cleaned up and alarms going off, what can actually be done?
Well, Patty, number one, we have to have the right people in the right positions doing the correct jobs. Mr. Hogan, our Premier, and in regards to Elvis Lovelace, who is the department manager of the transportation infrastructure, we need a meeting. We need something to be done. Mr. Hogan, we have not heard from him in regards to Bell Island. We have no water. We have no gas. We have no boat. We have no tourism because we have these 2 small boats because the Legionnaire, now that will not be back till the end of July, early August. That's what it is saying now. We suggested that they not do this. They'd only do half a job so that we would at least have the boat during our peak time. But that didn't happen. As it stands right now, the department, they have an acting assistant that is because where you see that John Baker left, that's last September. In regards to, we have another one that has left, the director, that's an empty seat. We've suggested that the Astron, that is in Fogo, with the veteran, to be brought here as the swing vessel when things happen, but it can't happen because Change Islands have priority. That boat is for Change Islands. Veteran is for Fogo. It's sad, Patty. Like, we were told when the election took place, we were then at the time, it was Dave Brazel was in here, and we were told that we didn't get a chance because early morning meetings and discussions and plans, we weren't included because we were the opposition. But we're not the opposition now. But we're still not part of that meeting. We're still not part of that discussion.
Quick question outside of the ferries. So when Kings Irving shut down, it was the only gas station on Bell Island. Do you have an update as to where we are? Apparently there was a buyer in the wings waiting, but...
Oh, 100%. But there's 70... Now, there's been... This is the third step or process, we will call it, that had to take place in regards to the environment and everything, because years ago they didn't have this stuff. In regards to the gas station and what's going on now, it's not to do with gas, it's to do with diesel from years ago, and it's in the environment. They can tomorrow open that gas station if they have $75,000 to take care of the diesel spill.
Okay.
I mean, the person who is buying that, they have to come up with now $75,000 on top of how much they're going to pay for the cost of it. I mean, and I know that they did, the second study was done, and the council and the town did get a grant in regards to being able to get that done. I mean, Patty, you can't take the full blame of the government. If these regulations and rules were not in place, there's got to be some leeway. But there's not. All of a sudden, somebody new is buying it. Let's grab. Okay, in the meantime, they're grabbing. And the people of Bell Island, who are they grabbing it from?
No, I mean, it's got to be cleaned up. Who should be responsible? 100%. I'll leave it up to you.
But the thing is, it's not the gas station that to clean up in regards to gas. It's in regards to diesel. And because that land adjacent to it is part of the parcel of the purchase, it all has to be done at once.
Okay. Last question. Is your home one of the homes that was taken off the old 25-year-old boil order advisory with the new filtration system?
Yes, it is.
Good for you.
Oh, but the way this is being run and the way it's going on, will I trust that, Patty? I mean, who is in charge? Who is in control? I asked, and I'm pleading, and I'm begging for the people of Bell Island. We are part of the Ferry User Committee. People think that we're not doing anything, and they think that they can put on Facebook or whatever, and the government's going to answer them. That's not how it works. Unfortunately, we don't have access to all the people in government. They don't answer to everybody. And as it stands right now, our chairperson, she is doing a full-time position with what she's doing there for our user committee. And our MHA, Fred can only go to Hogan and Lovelace and request. When we are told that the veteran has to go to Fogo because priority is over fish to people. People on Bell Island right now, they can't get to work. God love them. The seniors were supposed to go out on an outing over to St. John's for the day. They sat in the waiting room. It didn't happen. Is it fair? No. We're not asking for it to be treated special. We're asking to be treated fair. And tomorrow, if I went and blocked off your road, would you like it?
No.
Am I allowed to do it?
No.
And I could say, why should the government? It's not our fault that they are held behind. And in regards to hiring the proper people in these departments to take care of these situations, and it wouldn't be happening if this work on these boats were being done properly, efficiently, by the right people. It's jobs being done over and over again, or being paid out and not being done. Like in regards to the barnacles and that was supposed to be done last month. I'm sure the purchase order went through. I mean, we're as bad as the nurses here. With the nurses situation, you wonder why the budget is the way with the ferry service? This is why. Who is in control? Who is taking responsibility? And I hope that Mr. Hogan is listening. I also hope in regards to that Mr. Lovelace is listening, and we'd like a meeting. As far as the user committee, we don't have no power. All we are is an advocate. We can make suggestions, and what they do in the end is their call. It's not ours. We do not make them decisions. They make them decisions. And like I say, I hope the Astron is on its way here, because that is our swing vessel. But it's in Fogo.
Understood, Verna. I appreciate the time. Anything else quickly before I have to go?
That's everything, Patty, and I appreciate you for taking my call. But it's time for change. It's time for action. And I hope Fred gets on the air, and I hope he's front and center, and I hope Mr. Hogan is, and I hope Mr. Lovelace gives us some answers, because we do deserve the answers.
I appreciate the call,
Whether
Verna.
they're good or bad. Thank you. Have a great day, Patty.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, very quickly before we get to the break. So at the very bottom of the preamble this morning, made mention of an announcement coming from the American Department of Justice regarding the so-called Epstein list, Jeffrey Epstein, alleged sex trafficker. So a couple of things. They said that he committed suicide or he died by suicide while in prison. Okay. And that there's no such thing as an Epstein list of clients or visitors to his rape island of children. And, I mentioned that, we just had so many people made it a political thing as opposed to the actual trafficking of children. And a great email as an example of just how pathetic things are. And Buddy goes on to say that you don't want to see that list either because Bill Clinton's on it. What? What do I care about Bill Clinton? If Bill Clinton is on it, or if Donald Trump is on it, or if Prince Andrew is on it, or whoever's on it, and whatever party they vote for, or they represent, or whatever businesses they run, or whatever their role is in the monarchy, if they're on it and they did it, and they should be investigated and punished to the fullest extent of the law. Who cares who they are? If they were raping children, see, that email is just one of the ones that gall me, right? Because we can't get past this unbelievable hyper-political stance that so many people are unwavering in their adoration of one individual politician or another, when in fact we all know that not only are humans deeply flawed, period, but no one party, no one person has all the answers. Nobody's right all the time. And yes, if anybody representing any parties on that list, let's make it about the crime. Not about the party. Anyway, boy, oh boy. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go. Line number 3. Good morning, Charlie. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. Have you taught the dog any new tricks lately?
Not really. I'm working on a couple. He doesn't have them quite yet.
Patty, just a couple of bouquets first. We're always complaining about garbage and so on being strewn around. I'm finding at least 2 beaches that we frequent, the garbage thing is really, really good. Hardly any garbage on the beach at all. And that's been the case for 2 years now, So it seems to me that somebody's learning something, or maybe they see a clean beach and they want to leave it like that. Who knows?
Well, hopefully that is the case. And just on that note, the park close by where I live, people, if you bring in garbage, take it out when you leave. And also, last one, pick up your dog's poo. Come on.
Yeah, that's the one that hasn't improved a lot, I got to admit. Anyway, the other one, you were mentioning insurance rates and that with a man on the other day. And my experience, I had an accident last September. My experience with my insurance was great. It's that new company to replace Johnson's. I just forget the name right now. Anyway, I had a good settlement with them, and they've been good to deal with ever since. So I would say with insurance, with all the things going on across the globe, people think that these events have nothing to do with them. They've got a lot to do with your insurance rates going up. When you have what happens in Texas, with the flooding and all the people dying, there are properties gone and so on. And then another one that's not as widely reported, the bridge between Nepal and China, that was wiped out with glacial flood. I think that there's so much melt in the Himalayas, twice as much as elsewhere, that I guess that caused that. But all these things are related. And when the old saying about thinking globally and acting locally, people sometimes they act locally and they think locally, but they don't see the connection in all these things and insurance rates and so on.
Insurance claim payouts in this country have gone up dramatically year over year over year for the last, I think it's 7 massive increases in a row. The Disaster Relief Assistance Fund has been exhausted quicker than it ever has been in the country's history. So people can think what they want, but even if you look at what happened in the States, I mean, that story coming from Texas on the Guadalupe River, I mean, last death count I saw was 104, and still so many people missing. And I don't even think they really know exactly how many people are missing at this point. It's a shocking flash flood. People will talk about cuts at FEMA, cuts at the National Weather Broadcasting Services. These are important matters. They really, truly are. I read an interesting story this morning before I came to work, actually. And, we talk about the whole protectors and freedom of speech. A pediatrician in Houston posted something about MAGA voted for this, got fired.
Yeah, is that right? Wow.
Yeah, anyway.
Well, I listened to a story last night by one of the politicians. Apparently in the state legislature, the Republicans cut money that would have made possible sirens and warning signals and so on for the sake of so many thousands of dollars. So it's not only cutbacks to the people themselves, just buying equipment and so on. The local communities couldn't afford it, and they voted it down. So if that's not being indirectly responsible for a lot of these people dying, I don't know what is,
Yeah, for me, the focus is on the community and the families that have now been destroyed. I've read all the stories about timing of warnings and those types of things. Warnings were issued, but it's whether or not all the warnings could have been issued the way they could possibly be in a modern world. I don't know. And again, for me, the death toll really just jumps off the page as much as anything else. But regardless of what you think of one politician, one party or another, I mean, we're right back in this world of pretending that cutting wealth taxes has somehow going to benefit anybody else other than the wealthy. There's a new report again from the London School of Economics looking back a couple of decades. It has never worked, not once, ever, never, and it never will. This whole trickle-down Reagan economic stuff is pure and utter nonsense. And how anyone gets bamboozled by it is beyond me.
Well, since Reagan, I read somewhere that there was something over $30 trillion have been transferred to the wealthy, and most of that has come from at the expense of the middle class and the lower class. So although the American economy was supposed to be booming in comparison to the rest of the world, if most of that money is going to your business types and your rich types, and the others are being left behind, you can understand why people sometimes go MAGA and look to someone like Trump, who's only going to make it worse for them. But they look to some change because they're tired of the old politics that doesn't do them much good. They're looking to the wrong group, but I guess they feel they got to look somewhere. Patty, the last point I want to make is on agency nurses. I don't know if anybody else, no, I shouldn't say that. I know of a lot of people that have talked about this and are angry about it. I would say this: if they don't take action, the present Liberal government, in firing people or having people charged or getting the RCMP involved. If they don't do that soon, in the next couple of months, they will be thrown out of office, and rightly so. This is so out there and accepted almost as the norm. As you said, let's not just have a report and then it goes nowhere. And they're trying to talk it down. I've heard Dr. Parfrey and the present premier, and that only makes it worse, because this is so out in your face, so obvious that fraud was committed, that they had better do something or their rear ends are going to be out the door. That's my prediction.
When someone like the Auditor General says possible fraud, then that requires action. You know, the whole business of public inquiries and heads must roll. Look, if someone committed a criminal offence while mismanaging my money, because I'll remind the listeners one more time, government doesn't have any money, it's all our money. So if someone willfully, knowingly broke some standard accounting rules and best practices and no acknowledgement of conflict of interest and paying invoices that don't even reflect the reality on the ground for a car rental for someone who's not even here, like there's got to be some action here. There really truly does, and I don't think you're wrong. Any inaction on this will speak volumes, and the wrong ones.
Yes. Last comment.
Quickly.
We don't hear very often now something was caused by an act of God. And I'm glad that phrase is gone. These floods, these fires, and so on, indirectly, these are acts of men, of human beings. And I'll end on that note.
Appreciate the time, Charlie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Penny.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Let's keep going here. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to the PEC member for Stephenville Port LaPorte. He's the leader of the official opposition. That's Tony Wakeham. Good morning, Tony. You're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Paddy.
Welcome to the program. Before we get into whatever you wanted to speak about this morning, I don't know if you heard Dave Kane from Stephenville Crossing on, talking about what you have said in the past regarding that, quote unquote, there's nothing in Stephenville Crossing and other associated complaints.
I think I've been misquoted there by Mr. Kane. When that debate came up in the House, there was a decision made by the Liberal government that they were going to move the courthouse from Stephenville to Stephenville Crossing. So I heard from many stakeholders at the time, people who are directly involved in using the courthouse system, whether that be the police, whether that be the prison officials, whether that be judges, whether that be lawyers, and their concerns about the actual movement of the courthouse away from the facilities. For example, the prison is in Stephenville and other things like that. The RCMP are located in Stephenville. The thing that was provided to us, I asked if there had been a business case done. I asked if there had been consultations done. Of course, the answers were never given on any of that. And the rationale given was that they could renovate the building in Stephenville Crossing at a cost of $8 million compared to spending upwards of $22 million to build a new courthouse in Stephenville. So that was the rationale provided. Now we know tenders have come in. The cost has tripled. The cost has tripled now. It's over $20 million. So that's a decision that was made without consultation with stakeholders and without a feeling, because ultimately this cannot be about one town versus the other town. It has to be about making sure that we spend, as you pointed out, taxpayers' money wisely and get the best and make sure we're doing it. And we involve people that are going to use the facility. That's where we ought to be talking about. It's not simply about whether it was this town or that town. We ought to be talking about what makes sense and consult with people. And that's been part of the problem of this Liberal government.
Fair enough. I just want to give you a chance to react to what Mr. Kane had to say.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's get into the travel nurses. I did speak to a story that you brought forward regarding just one individual casual nurse practitioner offered him or herself, I don't know if it's a man or woman, to the public sector to work, was rejected, consequently hired by a travel agency, and then brought in to work the exact shifts that he or she could have worked for the public sector at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, let me clarify that. The individual involved here is a casual nurse, and she was available to do shifts. They put up a schedule online showing what shifts are available. This particular casual nurse turned around and said, I'm available for these shifts. They weren't provided to her. They said no. At the same time, she was approached by a travel agency saying that we're willing to hire you on because we have shifts available at the very same facility. Now, how does that make any sense? You know, we're talking about paying over $300 an hour to a travel nurse when we have casual nurses in the communities on the West Coast and other places in the province who are available to work. And they're not getting those work. I mean, the Auditor General pointed out 72 cases of this where casual nurses were actually issued record layoff slips, record of employment, and on it said laid off because of lack of work. And so here we are. It's continuing to happen. Ms. Coffey from the Nurses Union has spoken out about the fact that nurses in this province are available for work, and they're not getting it. And this particular nurse provided me with showing me the documentation she received. It's unbelievable that it's still happening, and it hasn't been addressed.
Would she be open to you sharing that documentation with me?
Well, I could certainly ask that. I will certainly ask if that's possible to do. Absolutely, I will.
Because, I mean, this is not about you or this particular story, but sometimes, I know people want to protect their own privacy and they don't want to be in the meat grinder or the public eye, but sometimes, and I've already got emails on this front already this morning. When I mentioned it this morning, I got an email within 30 seconds that said, you're just spouting PC propaganda because this story's probably made up. And I mean, I don't even know how to respond to that. So, but if you send me documentation, then I'll be quite willing to stand on it.
Patty, I've been traveling all over this province of ours, and I have been a voice for people who are having challenges with access to health care, who are having challenges with cost of living, who are concerned about safer communities. And I will continue to do that and advocate on their behalf because that's what people want. And I will not back down from representing people in Newfoundland and Labrador and talking about their issues at all because these are too important. And when we have scandals like this travel nursing scandal, then yes, we need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to make sure that we know how it started, why it started, and who was responsible at the end of the day.
Okay, let's just paint it hypothetical. So the election comes and goes, and let's say your party is successful, and there has been limited activity on this Auditor General's report. What exactly would you do?
Patty, I've already gone on record saying that I would have a judicial inquiry. I think it's too important. I think that it's not just simply about the accounting clerk or anyone else. This started at the top of the chain. As you know, no decisions get made, no contracts get signed without a minister or a premier's or government's approval. So there has to be accountability here, and we need to get to the bottom of this and how this happened. And how did we wind up paying such exorbitant rates? How did we wind up paying for things we never ever received? How did we wind up even paying for some of the things that were they in the contract? Some of the examples that the Auditor General has pointed out and others. And the challenge for me is we've known about this for 2 years. For almost 2 years, we've been asking questions in the House of Assembly of different ministers of health about these very issues. And let's go back to the issue currently again with the housing and the leases. So I've been told that there are leases still in place with management employees in the healthcare system. Now, is there any conflict of interest there? I would suggest there may be, because certainly if you're responsible for bringing in nurses or casual nurses and you have a property rented to a travel nursing agency, is there a potential conflict? I would argue there is.
Well, there 100% is. The bigger problem there is that we don't oblige those staffers to sign a conflict of interest statement and understandable consequences if they break it. So first things first, let's make that mandatory. You know, we have to understand what potential conflicts are. We have to sign on that you understand and agree to the terms of your employment. And if you break them, you're gone. I mean, it's a pretty fundamental world. If you operate like that in the private sector, you are taken to task right now, right away. No boss is saying, oh, I'm accepting recommendations. The boss are saying, here's your pink slip.
And here's something that maybe the health authority can clear up for us right away, because I have been told that no conflict of interest have been signed, no new contracts or conflict of interest guidelines have been signed by any management employees of the new health authority, even though the current Premier and Minister of Health at the time said they were being done. So I'd like to get that clarified, that's actually has happened.
Yeah, well, just about everywhere that I've ever worked, those things are just part and parcel of signing a contract. It's part of it. Whether it be publicly disparaging the company or breaking the law and entering into a conflict, purposefully and knowingly. It's a no-no, and it should be because of the blatantly obvious. Tony, final thoughts quickly before I have to go.
This travel nurses scandal is something that needs the full attention, that needs to be addressed. And like your previous caller, the fact that the Premier of the province has not really spoken to it or addressed it, that the Minister of Health has made a comment or two, but nobody in the current Liberal government appears to be taking this seriously. And this is a very serious issue because it deals with how we manage our healthcare system. We're spending more money on healthcare right now than ever in the history of our province of Newfoundland and Labrador, and yet we have the worst health outcomes in the country. And that's not my statistics, that's national statistics.
Appreciate the time, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you, Paddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, it's Tony Wakeham, of course, leader of the PCs, member for Stephenville Port. When we come back from the break, good friend of the show, Rob Strong, is in the queue to talk about the towing out of the Henry Goodrich and whatever else on Rob's mind. Dave wants to talk about the recreational food fishery. Trevor Freeborn, this is a good one, 211. Probably a very underused support telephone number here in this province and around the country. Let's take a break. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 6. And good morning, Rob Strong. You're on the air.
Happy to be number 6. Patty, good morning to you. How are you doing?
Very well. Thanks for asking. How about you?
Good. I thought your listeners might be interested in knowing that the Henry Goodrich, a rig that's been around Newfoundland for years and years and years, is finally departing Bullarm. It's being towed to Norway, and we're not quite sure what it's going to do there. It's a very old rig. It's in excess of 40 years old, and has been sitting idle at Bullarm. I was out there about 6 weeks ago, I guess, and I saw it, and to me it looked like a rusting hulk. But anyway, it's going to be towed, I think, either leaving today or tomorrow, all the way over to Norway by a very interesting vessel, a towing vessel called the Boca Sweeper. That's a vessel that has tremendous power. In the shipping business, Patty, we measure power by bollard pull. And basically, for your listeners who are not up to speed on the techie talk of the oil and gas business, bollard pull is a measurement of its ability to tow. And this vessel has 300 tons of bollard pull, whereby most of the vessels that you see down the waterfront probably have 110, 120 tons of bollard pull. So this is quite the vessel. It was a relatively new vessel built in 2016 and came from Rotterdam. So that's a bit of news. It's obviously going to free up some space at Bullarm. And many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians have worked on board her. So I guess it's sad to see her go, but she hasn't worked for the last 4.5 years, so she's got to go do something. What it is, we're not quite sure.
I'm not sure either, but of course, as you mentioned, it's been idle for quite a long time. I heard some scuttlebutt that it was being scuttled.
No, well, that's one of the scenarios. I also heard it was being upgraded to do some what we call P&A, plugging and abandoning oil fields, whereby you only have to enter the existing well and go down maybe 50 or 100 meters to plug the wells. So you don't need a fully operational rig for going to total depth of 3,000 or 4,000 meters. And I don't know why it would go to Norway for scrapping.
No, me neither. I have no earthly idea what's going on.
So actually there was a group of us who were trying to put together an arrangement to operate a scrapping or recycling. We don't call them scrapping anymore. We call them recycling because about 96% of oil rigs these days can be recycled. We were trying to establish a facility at Bullarm to be able to recycle not just the Henry Goodrich, but also a number of ships. The Canadian government, for instance, has got over 41 vessels that are more than 40 years old, and they all have to be recycled or scrapped, as you say. But we couldn't come to terms with our potential joint venture partner. And, of course, the government hadn't made up his mind and still hasn't made up his mind what it's going to do with Bullarm. So
we parked that proposal for a while, and we'll see what happens in the future.
Yeah, I wonder, are both companies, both Narl and DF Barnes, still putting their best foot forward? Because, I mean, I would imagine they are, because there's a big carrot at the end of the stick. But it's a lot to ask of the private sector to come up with business models and plans and pitches and proposals, not even knowing if this is a thing. Like, the government hasn't even committed to either leasing or selling Bull Arm outright, period. Strange approach.
A new development that's just got announced yesterday. I was party to it for a while back, but the federal government is now expressing an interest in establishing a facility to service submarines at Bull Arm. As you know, you know most everything, Patty, but as you know, the Carney government is very anxious to stimulate the economy by all sorts of projects. And one of them is to build, I think they're talking about 12 submarines. And there has to be a facility on the east coast of Canada to service these submarines. So the stories I'm hearing now are that the government of Canada is in serious discussions with the government of Newfoundland about turning Bull Arm into a facility that service, I guess, not just submarine, but primarily submarines, although they haven't been even built yet, but also maybe other naval vessels, and that would be sort of one of Carney's commitments to the East Coast, because God knows he's been making lots on the West Coast.
Absolutely. Well, of course, Calgary Stampede will do that to a politician. So when we talk about East Coast and some of these nation-building projects that the Prime Minister vaguely refers to, you know, maybe there'll be a pipeline, and then Alberta and Ontario enter into a feasibility study together talking about that. But with our offshore in particular, you know, it's not only shovel-ready kind of stuff, but there has to be a specific ask. That's what we're told anyway. We'll find out over the course of the summer what type of projects are on that particular table. East-West Energy Corridor, Gull Island, like who knows. But Beta Nord, I've been trying to figure out what the ask would be there. And then it dawned on me. The ask is Article 82. I mean, if the federal government's going to get directly involved, because it won't be with an injection of cash into Equinor and or to the project proper, but to satisfy that United Nations, Article 82, the Convention of the Laws of the Sea, that's where the federal government should play a role. What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I mean, let's face it, anything outside the 200-mile limit is subject to the law of the sea with a sliding rate starts at 2% and can go to 7%. So maybe Canada can agree to pick up that royalty, because it's an extra cost. I mean, any development offshore, even outside the 200-mile limit, is subject to royalties payments to the host province, in this case Newfoundland. But anything, as I say, outside the 200-mile limit is a whole other story. So that might be one area. The other area they might look at, because Beta Nord has been mentioned as a project as such that will get some of this federal government support, as well as Churchill Falls or the Lower Churchill or Gull or however you want to put it. But Beta Nord keeps mentioning. You know, there's going to be quite a debate, I think, anyway, from what I'm hearing, about what exactly is going to happen in Newfoundland with respect to topside fabrication. We know that Equinor is very interested in doing some subsea stuff, but, you know, the real jobs are, in my opinion, in topside fabrication and installation and commissioning, because, you know, if we build modules in Newfoundland, well, who's best to service it over the life of the field but those that build it? So there is quite a strong movement, particularly amongst the unions, to see a lot more topside fabrication occur in Newfoundland. But again, of course, we don't know, because the government is in the process now of negotiating a benefits agreement with Equinor, and until that's signed, we're only speculating. But the feeling in my circle was that Equinor wasn't particularly interested in doing stuff related to topsides. So that's going to be an interesting debate once we see the benefits plan. And so we all got our fingers crossed that we can see some topside fabrications, some more work at Bull Arm, some work at Marystown. Because remember, Patty, you know, if you look back on the Sea Rose, we did most of the topside fabrication for Sea Rose right here in Newfoundland. Most of it was done at Marystown. We did a lot of work for Hebron, believe it or not, in Port aux Basques. A lot of the subsea templates were done. The flare boom was done. So we have the capability, and God knows we have the workforce. So
that's certainly one to watch. I'm glad you brought it up.
I appreciate the time as usual, Rob. Anything else this morning, sir?
I don't think so, Patty. I'm following the LNG developments, as I know you are, on the West Coast, and it looks like after they made their first shipment of LNG out of the facility at Kitimat on July 1st, and it looks like now there might be 2 more LNG facilities, which raises the point about what are we doing about our 10 or 12 TCF, trillion cubic feet of gas, that government announced recently. I haven't heard a peep since that announcement. I don't know whether we're studying options, whether we're giving up on it. And I'd sure like to know, because LNG prices are going up every day. The current Henry Hub price, that's the price of gas going into the States, is about $2.80 a thousand, and yet the price they're getting for exporting LNG is over $3.80. So the more LNG we can develop, the better we're going to be off. But again, I haven't heard anything since Minister Crocker announced that we've now discovered, we now know that there's 10 TCF of gas offshore in the Jeanne d'Arc Basin. So, no, not really. That's, lots going on in my business. Lots
no doubt.
going on.
Yeah, Kitimat, so that's LNG Canada Inc. They actually have phase 2 that's been approved but hasn't been acted on. I wonder what's the status of that is. And for our offshore LNG, first things first, royalty regime. I mean, who's going to act without knowing the economics of it all? So that's what we need to see, the very next thing from the government. Good to have you on, Rob. Appreciate your time.
Okay, Patty, take care.
You too, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, break, Dave. When we come back, recreational food, fishery, and then you. Don't go away. Go back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Good morning, Dave. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you, sir?
That's kind. How about you?
Not bad at all, Mike. It's an interesting time in Newfoundland. As I heard you allude to part of it this morning, I guess, that we've got an upcoming provincial election. I think Premier Hogan says it has to be or will be called by October the 14th. Something like that. I'm pretty sure that's what I read this morning.
Yeah, when asked, he said it will be on or before October the 14th, which is when it has to be held by legislation. So we really don't know.
Yeah, but it's up and coming. So most of these people, Premier included, are newly appointed Deputy Minister of Fisheries, Lisa Dempster. They're going to be looking to get reelected. Now, one of the things, this is just a small situation where it's existed for years. It's been a problem. It's been a major safety concern in this province. And absolutely nothing has been done about it by successive government after successive government. That being the lack of parity or fairness between the Newfoundland food fishery and just go across the pond the other way to Nova Scotia. Drastic difference in the way it's ran and basically the way I guess it treats the people that enjoy this fishery. That being everything from the daily bag limits to the days that you're allowed to fish. Now, Newfoundlanders in particular, and this doesn't come down to any political stripe, whatever party you follow. People that support all parties in this province are involved in food fishery. They, it might not be every one of them, but certainly people from every political stripe enjoy this food fishery, consider it to be a very valuable resource and asset for Newfoundlanders, right down to food sustenance and being able to afford a not expensive or not a fortune to enjoy a feed of fish, as all Newfoundlanders do. This craziness that goes on has gone on for so long. It's not a big issue. It's provincially and federally administered. So it shouldn't be any different for Nova Scotia than it is for here. But like in particular on groundfish, in tidal waters here being salt water out in the ocean, our groundfish limit is 5 per person. In Nova Scotia, it's 10 per person. And Why is that? And why can they go fish any day? They don't need to go on selected dates that are put aside. On those dates, it could be very windy, like in particular here on the West Coast. I mean, you've got to pick and choose through quite a few days before you get the actual good weather that's allowing you safely to leave the wharf. And believe me, I know, because I participate in the food fishery every year and have been for years. The same issue, Patty, has existed. Coming down to safety, like maybe I shouldn't have to worry about only going from Friday to Sunday. Maybe the weather's going to be great on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'll go then. But I'm not going to be the type of person, and I don't think most are, that would take serious advantage and be out there hoarding all the time. They just want to enjoy it, get kind of a winter's fish put aside under safe conditions. And nobody, from the Premier to Lisa Dempster, the Assistant Deputy Minister of the Department is Blair Adams. These are the people with the power that will do the footwork, do the legwork. Jamie Chippett, who's the Deputy Minister. Why aren't they putting effort forward to we're not asking for anything extra, just parity with the other provinces. Fairness under the system is how we would see it. And for the average Newfoundlander, I mean, this is not something that'll take years to develop. This should be seemingly attainable overnight and be able to be done. It's a small ask.
So someone make an interesting observation as well, even though I think it's maybe missing a few points, is, the possibility to get a $1,000 fine if you're caught high grading. So you bring in a small cod, and you've seen pictures on Facebook of a big cod being caught, so you throw it back in so you can try to get a bigger one. The comment made there was that, well, it's fine enough for if you're angling on the river for salmon, you can go out and catch and release all day. Kind of a different thing, though. You bring a cod up from any sort of real depth, by the time it gets to the surface, it's not going to survive being put back in the water very likely, especially a small cod. So it basically just floats and the gulls get it. But it is an interesting comparison, and it's simply unfair no matter how anyone slices it.
Yep, I'd have to agree. And I mean, when it comes to high grading, maybe if they had a bigger catch limit, they'd keep the smaller ones. Fillet off a small cod's a bloody good fillet. But, they're thinking, we're out here, I only got these 4 pinfish, I'll throw them back and I'll high grade. But now in the meantime, the swim bladder's all blown up on it, and they're not going to be able to get back down. It's going to be picked apart by the gulls or whatever the case may be. Valid point. And especially in a time when conservation becomes the issue of the day. But, like recently we've seen some pretty sketchy takes on our fishery and what is reasonable with it in terms of, I remember when Legautier was minister, she said, okay, well, the moratorium's over, we're going to increase the total allowable catch, and we're going to bring foreign boats back. This year the total allowable catch has gone up again, despite I don't think it being the greatest desire of fishermen to see it gone right up. Certainly not outside of Newfoundland fishery. If you're going to increase the quotas, then give it to our fishermen. Don't allow foreign fishers to come in here and take it. It should still be considered like a basic observatory fishery and watching the resource as it grows. When we were fishing cod before, we were taking 600,000, 800,000 tons a year. I could hardly say that the moratorium's being called off when I think your initial number was like 13,000 total allowable tons. That
was when it's stewardship. The trick with the foreign fleet is when it's deemed commercial, we have a contractual obligation with NAFO that it triggers automatic insertion of the foreign fleets again. Dave, I'm late for the news, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I think it's a lot less conservation-minded or dangerous for us to be high grading than for our federal fisheries minister to be throwing science out the window and going against their chief scientists and doing whatever they want. We get the dirty end of the stick every time, but it's time that people put pressure on their MHAs. You see them around. Why aren't you changing our ability to fish safely and just fish to the same degree that others do?
Your MPs who you want to talk to. But I appreciate this, Dave. Got to get going.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break for the news. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 5. Good morning, Trevor. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you?
Excellent today. Thank you. How about you?
Pretty good, thank you. I'm calling because I work for 211, Newfoundland and Labrador. So a lot of people have heard about 911 for emergency services and 811 for health services, but 211 is a navigation service that connects people in Newfoundland and Labrador to the complete range of government and community and health and social services. They just dial 211 on their phone, and they'll connect with one of our helper operators in less than a minute.
So this is a partnership between the Government of Canada and the United Way in this province, right?
It was originally, yes. It was started by the federal government. Right now, the funding is coming from the provincial government.
Okay, fair enough. I just want to make sure I get that fact right. So 211 is a real catch-all. I mean, if you go to the website, just Google up 211, you'll go directly to 211 Newfoundland and Labrador at the top of the page. There's not much that you don't do.
No, I mean, it really does cover a huge range of services. Basically, anything that people need support or help with in the province that's not like a direct emergency, that you don't need help with right this instant. But, I mean, these days, most of our calls, well, about 38% of them are around food. So a lot of people are experiencing food insecurity, and then we can connect them. We can make do an assessment of what their need is, and then make a referral to, say, a local food bank or a local food pantry or a community fridge or whatever exists out there that could be helpful to people. We try to refer them to that service, and we can also do a follow-up after the fact. So we can follow up with someone within, say, 3 to 5 days to see if they got the services they needed, and if they didn't, perhaps recommend something else to them.
I mean, you talk about issues regarding newcomers to the country, newcomers to the province, Alzheimer's support, mental health help, Meals on Wheels. I mean, I had a look at the list in the past. It's extensive. So how many people work at 211, Trevor?
Right now in the province, there's myself, and we have a local editor, so an editor for our database that keeps track of all the services that are available and updates them and that kind of thing. And we also have a provincial navigator now. For a while there, our navigation was being taken care of by people in the Maritimes, but not directly in Newfoundland. But we just recently hired a new navigator.
Who answers the phone when I call 211?
Well, it would probably, during business hours in Newfoundland and Labrador, it would be one of our navigators. After that, it would be taken up by New Brunswick and then Ontario. And then, as the time zones go across, it would be taken up at various places across the country. But everybody across the country is well-versed in all of our services here. I've sat in on caller listening sessions, and I've watched the navigators work, and their understanding and knowledge of our services is, extensive. And it's practically immediate. So if someone calls and say, I'm looking for childcare in Newfoundland and Labrador, and I live here, then they will, find something almost immediately if it exists, and then connect them with that, and then make the referral.
Is it always answered by a human being?
It is, yeah. It's always a live voice. And even if you go onto our website and you open up the chat function, you will get a live person. And they'll be certainly as helpful as they can be based on the resources that exist.
So it's multilingual. I know that much about it. How about things like accessibility for folks who are possibly hard of hearing or deaf?
Yes, well, they can use the visual relay service. So if they contact our navigators, they can ensure that they have the appropriate services to make it accessible to them. Accessibility is a high priority in the service. And you mentioned the languages. We have a language capacity that supports over 150 different languages, and including indigenous languages. And I was chatting with the team lead the other day, and he said he's been there, I think, 8 to 10 years. And he said, I don't recall an instance when someone has ever been turned away due to a language issue.
Amazing. So this program kind of feels like 211 some days. I'll put that out there.
Yes, I bet.
Can you give us an idea of the call volume, monthly or annually, whatever you want to break it down at?
Right now, it's around 500 calls a month. And I think you said at the beginning of the program that it was an underutilized service, and it is underutilized. And that's part of the reason why I'm calling today, is to let people know that it exists. I took on this role 3 or 4 months ago, and when I told people I was working for 211, sometimes they didn't know what I was talking about. And like you said, it is a great service, and it's a very efficient and effective service. It's money well spent, I think, for the service that we receive, but we certainly do have a higher capacity. We can take more calls, and we want people to call, and it doesn't have to be an emergency. Sometimes we'll get calls from, say, an older citizen, like a senior perhaps, and they may feel isolated in their community, and they just want to get out and get involved in their community more and learn about what sort of activities exist out there. And so we field calls like that, as well as people that need income support, or people that are looking for a housing, or are perhaps unfortunately the victims of, say, domestic violence and that kind of thing. So it is a full gamut of any sort of help or support that people can receive in Newfoundland and Labrador and across the country.
Youth-related programs, adult-related programs, seniors-related programs. And here's an interesting one, is sometimes, and this happens to me, people call with a question or a concern, but they don't really know who they should ask it of. So whether it be a civic matter municipally or provincially or federally, so you can do a good job breaking down exactly where the referral should go, because some people are just kind of flying blind a little bit, not knowing exactly who they should turn to.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, we can be sort of a catch-all for pretty much everything. And I mean, if it's not appropriate for 211, then we can triage someone to another service. So we can triage someone to 911 if it is an emergency. We can triage someone to 811 if that's a more appropriate number. But absolutely, we encourage people to call. And we also want to know what resources exist out there that are not currently in our database. So if anyone out there right now has a service or support in their community, they can go to our website and go to the Contact Us page, and they can, first of all, they can go to the website to see if their service exists there, and if it doesn't, then they can go to the Contact Us page and then submit, a request to have themselves added to our database so that other people can avail of it and we can connect them appropriately.
You're going to put me out of a job, Trevor.
Well, please, Patty, if you mention 211 on your calls. If anyone calls and you think that it's appropriate, let them know about 211 and our website, nl.211.ca.
I appreciate the time this morning, Trevor. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, it's Trevor Freeborn with 211. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're running the rock. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Frank Goss. You're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how you doing?
Excellent today. How about you?
We're doing all right, my buddy.
So we're talking around the rock, of course. Are you a current or past crew member of the HMCS St. John's?
I'm a current. I'm a former crew member of the St. John's. I've done this event personally. This is my 4th year, but right now I'm with the Regional Cadet Support Unit Atlantic. I work with the cadets. But the ship is deploying this year, so they reached out to alumni runners and see if anybody wanted to do it and help out the crew. And of course, I jumped on it.
Fantastic. Where are you guys?
We are somewhere in between Deer Lake and Springdale. We're running into Springdale today.
So tell us a little bit about why, for 4 years, you decided to take part in the Round the Rock.
Great question. The first year, I didn't really know what it was. I had joined the St. John's. We were supposed to do a lot of sailing, and they just put it to ask, and they wanted to do it. And it's a free trip home, so I'll give it a shot. So going into it, I didn't have much of a idea of what it was, but once I did it the first year, and once we met that first wish child, his name is Carter McNeil, I think my life has been forever changed. And meeting the wish kids, seeing the generosity and the empathy from the people across this great province, I mean, why wouldn't I come back? It's just been outside of having my own children, this has been the highlight of my life.
Good on you, Frank. Tell us about Carter McNeil and the Wish.
Carter, I think it was Disneyland. I'm sorry, Carter, if you're listening, my buddy. I forget what his wish was, but we met Carter the one day in Springdale. We came in, and of course, we're all tired and running and fundraising and stuff. And he was 5 years old at the time, missing his 2 front teeth, and what a beautiful smile. Just lift us all up, gave us the purpose of what this event was all about. I've kept in contact with him and his family a little bit over the years, and I got to see him a couple of days ago in Springdale, and he's 13, he's a grown boy, and he got out running with us, and yeah, meeting Carter was amazing.
The big deal. I've met some Wish families over the years. Just so people know what we're talking about, Run the Rock is done to raise awareness and funds for Make-A-Wish Canada, which used to be Children's Wish. So doing critically important work. On that front, how's the fundraising going?
Fundraising's been amazing, Paddy. Again, no surprise to me, but everywhere we go, we fill up the buckets for outside, Tim Hortons or Coleman's and all these places, Irving, and we've had so much support through the businesses so far across the province, which I know will continue the whole way. But it never ceases to amaze me. When we're fundraising, we'll have our signs and stuff, but people are, going about their busy lives. They'll go in Coleman's and they'll stop and throw $20 in the bucket, walk 4 or 5 feet, and then come back and say, "What are you guys raising money for?" And it's so heartwarming to see the generosity. And of course, then we tell them what we're here for, and then back into the purse for another 10. It's amazing.
Yeah, good on folks who have the resources to make that type of donation, because it's easy enough for your heartstrings to be pulled when we're talking about Make-A-Wish Canada.
Absolutely. For me personally, I don't think there's a better cause. That's not putting down anything else, of course. There's a lot of great causes out there. There's a lot of people in this province and in our country doing a lot of great work for people in need. But to see a child get their wish or talk about their wish, it is life-changing.
I tell this story all the time. I met a Wish family once when we were hosting an event, and the young child who was the Wish kid, he was asking for a wish to benefit his older brother. It was all about his brother. I just couldn't get over it. I'll never forget it. Amazing stuff. Frank, you mentioned the best thing outside of your own children. How many kids do you have?
I've got 3.
How old are they?
My oldest boy, Zachary, is 10. My daughter, Eleanor, is 4. And my youngest boy, Everett, is 19 months.
Lovely. Congratulations.
Thank you, my friend.
Frank, good to have you on the program. Say hello to the entire team. Wish them all the very best for me.
All right, Patty, thanks for having us on, and to all the great people in Newfoundland, thank you so much for having us.
Stay safe, Frank. All the best, buddy.
Sure. Everybody.
Here we go. Frank Goss is running the rock. Let's go to line number 2. Eileen, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. Good morning. Thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
Okay, it's been a long time since I called. I'm calling about the Belle Island Ferry Service. And as I'm listening to your program this morning, a common theme that I hear from a lot of callers, whether it's regarding the ferry or not, is accountability by government. And so that is a big concern of mine, accountability by government to address the ferry service affecting Belle Island and Portugal Cove, the community of Belle Island in particular, with 2 vessels being not running today. It's really unacceptable. When I'm talking about accountability, so I have called various members for answers over the course of the past couple of months when there's been issues, only to be directed to somebody else. So, for instance, at one point I did call Minister Lovelace, only to be directed to call somebody else and to be told that Minister Lovelace was aware of the issues. I have not heard anything from Premier Hogan at all. And then the shore-based manager have not received any phone calls from that person as well either. So, it's pretty discouraging when you try to advocate on behalf of the community and yourself for answers about the service, not to hear anything back, and for people to give up. And that's really, really sad. When I'm talking about accountability as well, like what I would like to see is, I'd like to have some concrete information from the various levels of government regarding the ferry service, accountability as to, everything from what are the mechanical issues with the ferries, what are the costs involved, total for these repairs. Because in my opinion, Patty, they're putting a Band-Aid on a big problem here with the vessels. These are aging fleets, and it's no longer serving not only the community but the province, because if other areas within our province needs these vessels, then sometimes they need to be called out. And we understand, living on like a little island or within the province of Newfoundland, we don't expect these ferries to run in inclement weather and storms. We understand that, but general day-to-day operations are questionable, and it's very frustrating for people. So I'm advocating on behalf of my community to continue to kind of lobby, and I'm calling you this morning because, frankly, VLCM right now is the only reasonable solution to communicating what is going on with the ferry, and to get it out to people who are trying to come to Bell Island. So accountability is one of the things that I just talked about. But the other thing is, what are the impacts of the lack of the ferry service to and from Bell Island? Number one, it impacts tourism. Last year, there were, I believe, 18,000 people visited the museum. Tourist season is heightened this time of the year. So I suspect that tourism is going to be negatively affected. That's one impact. And then the impact to families and working commuters. And so you have working families. Now, I'm saying families. That is a different terminology than what we are accustomed to talking about. We've talked about working commuters in the past. But, Patty, I'm not sure, you probably know about it, but more and more families are commuting now, taking their children to work, with them for daycare services. So you don't just have, the adult male or female going to work anymore as a commuter. They're taking their small children to school, to daycare services. Daycare services are no longer available on Bell Island. And so that's something that's impacting families as well. And they're spending, 12 and 14 hours a day, trying to just make an honest living, Patty. At the end of the day, when someone goes to work, they're coming home, to spend time with their family or to do whatever. And that's all families want to do on Bell Island as well, is to make an honest living, spend time with their family. And, I have my son and daughter-in-law and my grandchildren, impacted that way. The other area that it impacts is our health. So today there's no ferries running. And so, that means that our healthcare system over here has to, put in line right away. That immediately initiates, a different kind of emergency service alert, those sort of things. That's that, our ambulance service. And so if we need a helicopter or whatever, air ambulance, then that's something else, and it's costly. I'd like to have $1 for every sort of issue that's been brought up in recent years. So I'd be a millionaire. But impacts to tourism, impacts to families, impacts to children, impacts with our education, impacts to tourism, and to our seniors. So my mother has been waiting for over a year for a medical appointment. Prior to this, she needed another appointment, which she was waiting for over a year. Thankfully, I was able to get her to that appointment yesterday. But when you're making appointments, when you're talking about medical appointments, it's a lot of planning. So what I had to do was to plan my medical appointment for my mother well in advance. And so on Sunday, even when there was issues on Sunday with the vessels, thankfully I was able to get my mother over there for her appointment yesterday. We stayed over there the night before. She has an appointment tomorrow. I left her, off Bell Island to ensure that she gets to this critical appointment tomorrow.
Understood.
It's, if she was here and we couldn't get to town tomorrow, I mean, she'd have another wait time. And one of the reasons why there's wait times is because, people quit, and it's just very, very unfortunate. And so, I know I've talked a lot, but hopefully, I've stressed that my concern is strictly to advocate on behalf of the community and to communicate to the province my concerns with regard to lack of accountability by all officials of our various levels of government, as echoed by previous callers this morning, and to let the community know that they need to continue to call and let their concerns know.
And they're welcome to do it. I'm late for the news, but I appreciate your time, Eileen.
Thank you very much, Patty. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break for the news. Joe, you stay right there. We talked scams earlier. Joe's got one to tell us about right after this. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's go to line number 4. Joe, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Patty.
Morning to you, Joe.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Now, according to Dave, what I understand,
now all of a sudden the connection's gone. Now I can't hear you, Joe.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, okay. Stay right there.
Okay. According to Dave, your producer, I got a scam yesterday. It happened about 20 after 3 in the evening. Now, I got a phone call saying that I won a 15,000 watt stereo. And I said, what did I win that to?
15,000 watt stereo?
Yes. Now, that's some watts, isn't it?
That's some serious wattage, yeah.
I said, what did I win that to? He said, by calling the open line. Now, they never said VOCM, Rick, but they said they listened to me on the open line. I said, it's awful strange. I said, the open line. I said, you think you hear something about that? I said, the air stereo for the giveaway.
I don't have anything for a giveaway. I'm lucky to get a mug every now and then.
Yes. So they never asked for no date of birth or social insurance number, right? But that could be coming down the road, see?
Yeah, well, that's fair warning. I mean? If anyone, a couple of things. So if anyone claims to have a 15,000 watt stereo, it's not real. And if anyone says there's a prize because you called here, that's also not real.
Yeah, and then I got my sister to phone back the same number, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's in studio. That's why I called the open line this morning to see if you guys had a number for 468, right? And Dave told me they never had that number.
Yeah, no, we don't. And I don't know if it's as much a scam or someone's just playing a prank on you.
No, they asked me for my address. I gave them my address. They said it's going to be shipped out on the courier.
Okay. Yeah, so...
in 5 business days.
All right. Well, Joe, thanks for letting us know about it, because now people are also in the know and they won't fall for whatever was on the other end of that phone.
Yes, now they might phone back today now or tomorrow and ask me date of birth, the social insurance number, right? But I won't give them that.
No, of course not.
No. And listen, Patty, one more thing before it goes. Okay. Avalon Peninsula, where's that to?
Where's the Avalon Peninsula?
Yeah, because they found a cat with ticks on it, according to the news, right? And they carried it to the fit, and then the fit to the ticks, right?
Yeah.
Now, did you think they give up the town?
Yeah, I suppose, but the cats are probably pretty mobile, and if it happened in one area on the Avalon, that's where St. John's is, on the Avalon Peninsula. It's the far east coast of the
Avalon,
island.
no, right?
No,
am I on the Avalon in Catlina?
In where?
Catlina.
In Catalina? No.
No, because I got a cat too, right? And she's indoor and outdoor. She goes outdoors too, right?
So you probably don't have much to worry about. Then that's the good news, Joe. But I appreciate your time. I'm going to take another call here now.
Okay, thank you, Betty.
You're welcome. All the best.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Let's go to line number 3. Mike, you're on the air.
Hey, morning, Betty.
Morning.
How are you this morning?
Very well. How about you?
Good. Just getting hauled over. Here we go. Well, I was calling in with an update on the situation on Greenwood Street with my mother's residence.
Oh, the flooding in Marystown. Okay.
I guess the update is there's not much of an update. It's pretty much in the same situation the last time we talked about it. The town did go ahead and lower the culvert down on the street. They were at that time a couple of weeks ago when we talked about it then. Unfortunately, with the type of spring we're having, as dry as it is, I don't know when we'll ever know if this is going to work or not. A couple of weeks ago when I was home, that was the first time in years that I could walk around in my mother's yard with a pair of sneakers on it and not end up with 2 wet feet. That was actually, they were installing the culvert at that time, so I think we can thank Mother Nature for that, and not the culvert that was in progress of being dropped at that time. So we're still playing the waiting game. There has been a couple of councillors reached out since we've called into the show, but we're in the same scenario. We got to basically determine that that's not going to work before they move any further. The same problem still exists. With us finding out that that's not going to work could be a potentially flooded basement, which is what nobody wants. I've been doing some more digging. We got some ATIP information back. And I've also got the motion from when it was decided to sell that on Greenwood Street. If you don't mind, I'd like to read that out word for word. It says, be it resolved, approval be given to advertise a request for proposal for the sale of lot numbers 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 in the proposed Greenwood Street subdivision. So I don't want to say I find it amusing, but it's kind of ironic that they don't think that it meets the subdivision requirements when they call it a subdivision themselves. So I guess the question then is, why were subdivision regulations not followed for this development? It sure will be one I'd love to have an answer to.
Me too. And I'm sorry to hear that the update is there is no update.
Yeah, and one other thing that come back in this, and it was an email that was sent amongst council. And it's only a few lines here. It was one of the councillors that was acting on my mother's behalf, asking questions about what the town was doing, you know, and a plan forward on the problems up there. And it says, good day. It says, we are aware of the issue for the past several years. This has been going on for years before we joined council. We have tried several different ways to fix this issue for Miss Fitzpatrick. As you may or may not be aware, the location is on a bog in Greenwood Street. The town just put another ditch out back her house. We are hoping this will help, but this is not a town issue according to our town super. Please feel free to contact me on this issue. I have been on site several times to investigate myself, and I also believe it is not a town issue. Now, if you were to dissect that and read into that a little bit, it says that we have tried several different ways to fix this issue for Miss Fitzpatrick. That's, Patty, I can't think of one way. Never mind several. And it says the town just put another ditch out back of her house. We're hoping this will help. My mother paid for that ditch that was put behind her house. I organized a contractor. I was the one who spent days on a chainsaw clearing the path for the excavator and getting that sort of stuff done. So if I was one of the councillors, of which all were copied on this email, as well as all the town staff, and they were getting phone calls from me, I'd have to ask myself, what is wrong with him? What is he expecting people to do? You know, this letter does not give it is no way an accurate representation of what's been going on up there or what has happened. The town hasn't done one thing until they dropped this culvert here a few weeks ago, and most of the people down there believes that this is not going to do anything to benefit her. So what the several ways to fix this is no idea. And this last note about being on site several times to investigate myself, So I can tell you, they never showed up on my mother's security cameras, and they've never spoke to my mother. So that don't make sense either.
Yeah, it certainly doesn't jive with the stories that you've been telling me or that your mother told us, I guess, last week or maybe the week before. Mike, I'm late for the break, but I appreciate the non-update update. Stay in touch.
Will do. Thanks, Paddy.
You're welcome,
Have a good
sir.
day.
You too. Bye-bye. All right, final break of the morning. Don't go away. Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 1. Say good morning to the Mayor of Wabana. That's Philip Tobin. Mayor Tobin, you're on the air.
Good day, Paddy. How are you?
Excellent today. Thank you. How about you?
Not too bad. I'm reaching out today on behalf of the town of Wabana there and the residents of Belom. I've been listening for a while this morning, so I know you already had some calls on this topic. So, but I just want to voice some concerns here today. We're having issues, obviously, with the ferry system. It's obviously, a broken, deplorable ferry system. We started yesterday. We've had the Beaumont Hamel go down for maintenance and mechanical issues, and we have divers called in, and we still have no idea, no timeline on when this vessel will return to service. And then this morning we had our second vessel, the Flanders, go down for issues with the steering, and we're still waiting for information from provincial elected officials, and we have no timeline of when either vessel is going to return to service. So here we are. We have two aging vessels. Flanders is 35 years old. The Beaumont Hamel is 45 years old. They cannot keep up to this service. They cannot provide a reliable service to this community, and it's affecting our economy. Our economy is struggling. And this morning we're here with traffic and lineups on both sides of the Tickle, and there's many folks here that have medical appointments, medical treatments, who are cancelling, who cannot get across. We are isolated and cut off from the mainland, from getting all resources. Commuters, hundreds and hundreds of daily commuters can't get back and forth for work. Supplies, stock cannot get back and forth to Yarmouth. It's becoming a real issue. And I want to reach out this morning, just to, somebody has to take accountability here, and it has to be the provincial government. Something has to get done with this deplorable ferry system. It's not working. We have reached out. Our ferry users committee has reached out. They're working every day. Members of our town council and elected officials are working every day, reaching out to government officials. We've asked for a third vessel to come here because of the two aging vessels that are not reliable on a daily basis. Government will just not listen. So here we are now, isolated, stranded in the community with no vessel operating and no timeline on when either is returning to the service. We have asked several times the past month, can we have a ferry from out on the Fogo run? They have a large vessel, the Veteran, and they have the Astron out on that run. And they will not send a smaller vessel here, a younger vessel, to help alleviate the strain and the stress and the struggling from our community. The businesses here are struggling.
Understood. So has anybody had adequate time to even figure out what the steering-related issues are at this point?
Well, the latest information I got in the past hour was there's techs on board dealing with the steering problem on the Flanders. That's the only information I have. No timeline on when repairs will be done. The Beaumont Hamel went down yesterday. They had to call in divers. Apparently divers are still aboard underneath and assessing the repairs and the problems with that. But once again, there's no timeline or anything given on when either vessel will return back to service. I mean, we're here. We're facing all these obstacles in the community. Our businesses are struggling, and now with neither vessel on the Tickle, the last couple of days here now has been very, very, very hard. Obviously, the tourism industry is taking a huge hit, and people are struggling. They're losing days off work to provide for their families. They cannot get back and forth. They're turning their 8-hour days into 12 or 14 because of one ferry broken down every day. It's just not a reliable ferry system. There's two aging vessels. Like I said, one is 35 years old, one is 45 years old. It's time for government to, they need to step up here and come up with a better plan here to provide a better fixed link, a better service to the people here in this community. There's still over 2,300 people living in this community, and many hundreds of them travel every day for work, medical appointments. And right now we are cut off.
I don't know what...
We have a 75th anniversary, Paddy, going on for the town of Urbana this year. 75th. It's all kinds of functions, events planned, July and August. and we're cancelling several events. This morning we had a seniors trip planned for 50 or 60 seniors to travel to the city all day and back and forth. We had to cancel that. It's just no reliability in the ferry system, and it's hurting our community. Our economy is struggling.
So the province, I don't know when, but they abandoned what was the vessel replacement strategy. And I don't know how that went by the wayside. I think that was the last time that the ferries were built here, whether it be the Hazel McIsaac, I believe was one of them, the two that came out of Marystown, identical ferries. Yeah. And then we walked away from that strategy, and I don't even know if I ever remember hearing why.
No, and you know what? Here we are now. We had the Legionnaire. The Legionnaire has been gone on refit for 7 months. 7 months replacing engines. It's a vessel that was built in 2018. And here we are now. It's replacing all the engines in it 6 or 7 years later. And it's gone on a refit for 7 months. And still no timeline. We're hearing late July, August, but there's actually no given timeline on when it will return. We can't get the proper answers from government officials. And like I said, communication with government officials has been very poor as of late. We're not getting adequate information on what's going on with everything.
Yeah, information's king, and I say this all the time. Even if you get an answer that you don't like, it's better than no answer.
Absolutely. Any communication, anything to put you in a direction is better than nothing.
That it is, and at some point into the future...
And here we are, Paddy. On top of that, we're struggling. As you may have heard, we've lost our only gas station. We have one gas station in the community. That's been gone for over a month now, and we're working with environment assessment companies, the provincial government, and we're held up on several issues with that. So we're in quite a predicament here now, as you can tell. We're not far from calling a state of emergency. We have no gas over here. We have absolutely no ferries running on a tickle. I mean, we have a couple thousand people here who have to leave this community on a daily basis just to go get gas. So for that to happen, here we are now. We're faced with a problem that 1,000 people who don't go on a daily basis, or seniors who shop locally and get gas locally, now they had to travel to the city.
Understood.
So now the high volumes of traffic are increasing, along with the daily commuters, along with the tourism.
Mayor Tobin, I understand your concerns, sir. We just cleared 12 o'clock, so they're going to flag me off the air here any second now, but you're always welcome on the show with an update when you have one.
Absolutely. I'll call back. Appreciate your time today, Paddy.
Thanks, Mayor Tobin. All the best. All right, bye-bye. All right, good show today. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.